There you go. All right, John, I've started the recording. We've got the people that are here. So I've
Well, terrific. So, first of all, welcome. We've got people on here from Canada, the United States, Mexico, Colombia, the Dominican Republic. So one person I know from Guatemala. I know there's some people on from Spain, and of course our good friends over across the pond in the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. So welcome to each and every one of you. It's going to be an outstanding day. As I said a moment ago, if you're not prepared to take notes, now would be a good time to get ready to take notes. We do record these and we do edit them, but at the end of the day, there's nothing like your own notebook. I've got mine ready to go. One of the things I learned from the great Jim Rohn, having lunch with him a number of years ago here in Dallas, always have your notebook. You never know what's going to be said. It's one or two things that can paradigm shift a business. It's one or two ideas. It's one or two things you're going to learn today about your product, Immunocal, that you may not know. And that's even for Keith and I, who've been here forever. It's it for John Molson, who's been here longer than forever. There's still things that we're learning, especially from researchers like Dr. Lewis. So, okay, a couple of points as we get started here. And I know we've got more people that are joining us as we speak here. I see the numbers keep going up, so that's great. Long before I was in network marketing, I was an athlete, as some of you know. I still am. If you looked at Facebook yesterday, you saw me in my weight room with my young assistant, who thank God is extremely strong and can lift off for me. But, I stopped competing in judo at 41 years old. And the final 4 years of my career, I was on Immunocal. This was in the late 1990s. If I had not been on Immunocal, it would not have helped me to recover, not only from my workouts, which at that point in a contact sport were pretty brutal at that age, as you can imagine, but it also helped me to recover when I had a knee injury that required surgery. It sped up my recovery time. So, once again, I saw what this product did. And to be honest with you, I didn't completely comprehend that the Immunocal was such an important thing. I was taking it, but I didn't quite get how it fit into my sports training. Fast forward, still at it, still lifting weights as an old guy, but certainly not anything like I did when I was younger. But John Molson and I talk on a regular basis, and John, of course, is a lifelong athlete and still is now. And we talk about how many times we feel that Immunocal has impacted us. But over the years, people have seen Immunocal as a product for sick people, right? When they first get in our business, they say, well, I've got so-and-so and they've got this ailment or that ailment. Let me get them on the product. And by all means, immune compromised people obviously need our product. But at the end of the day, if that's your thinking, you're limiting yourself in your business dramatically, okay? And what you're going to hear today is the other end of the spectrum. You're going to hear about elite, world-class, professional, and Olympic level athletes, that 1/100th% of humanity that can call themselves the best at what they do or one of the best at what they do. You're going to hear about that from somebody who works in that world every single day, and the impact that he believes Immunocal has on those athletes. And not just what he believes, what he can document, more importantly, because documentation beats conversation anytime, right? So you're going to hear that firsthand today. Now, for those of you who are new, and I realize we've got some people, I know there's a group in Puerto Rico, for example, that's brand new to Immunotech. So just a little bit for your benefit about our company as we get into today's event. Immunotech is a company that was founded on research. The name of our company is actually Immunotech Research. Now, why is that? The research on Immunocal, our core product, began way back in 1975. Collaboration of Dr. Gustavo Buenos and Dr. Patricia Kongshaven, two McGill University professors. They collaborated. They had a few ideas that they were kicking around. And by 1978, they actually published the very first paper on Immunocal. Now, just for context, think about that for a minute. 1975, I'm a freshman in high school. Think where you were in 1975. 1978, I was a junior in high school. Think where you were in 1978. That's how far back this research goes. 1980, a gentleman comes along by the name of Dieter Beer, puts some money behind this project and behind this research. And what happens between 1980 and 1996, nobody was asleep at the wheel here. This product was in the research world. And I'll just mention two pieces of research by two very famous researchers. Dr. Luc Montagnier, who's still very, very involved running the Pasteur Institute over in Paris, did some research on the HIV virus, actually published a peer-reviewed article on that actually appears in a medical textbook used to this day to educate medical doctors on oxidative stress in both HIV and cancer. Okay, and also our good friend Dr. Wolf Droga, okay, was also working with this product up in Heidelberg, Germany, with the German Cancer Institute, and doing all sorts of research once again on Immunocal because of his relationship with Dr. Bunos and Dr. Kongshaven. Those were two researchers, and we could go on and on and on about what happened between 1980 and 1996 because it was incredible to set the table for what would happen eventually in 1996. Was that there was a collaboration of three businessmen, Dieter Beer, who I mentioned, a gentleman by the name of Chuck Roberts, and a gentleman who's become not only a good friend, but somebody who has taught me so much about Immunocal, so much about athleticism and Immunocal, so much about nutrition and Immunocal, and really is the guy who has really been so instrumental in putting together these researchers around the world that he works with on a regular basis, that he has relationships with, and he's really been the beacon, if you will, of this research and taking what Dr. Bunos and Dr. Kongshaven started and taking it to market. In 1996, he was the third gentleman that joined that team and helped to make Immunotech Research a company. So at this point, it's my honor to turn the call over to my good friend who's going to be bringing on a very, very special guest, and that's my good friend, John Molson in Montreal. John, welcome to the call.
Thank you, John. I'd like to begin by thanking both John and Keith for putting this series of Zoom calls on, as it's given me a chance to share some of the work of our scientific partners over the years. It's one thing to read the journal articles, but it's something completely different hearing it from them directly. And when we formed Immunotech and launched the business in 1997, I was at the tail end of my competitive career in sports. I spent many hours sharing ideas with Dr. Bunos on the subject of high-performance sports, particularly how I felt as an athlete when I first started on the product. This was something he developed a keen interest in. He said to me one day after he thought about it for a long time, as AIDS is a model of immune deficiency, the athlete is a model for the healthy adult. During the ensuing years, we completed 2 clinical trials in 2 separate age groups using 2 different models of exercise, with both resulting in clinically significant gains in performance. We submitted the data to Health Canada and obtained a health claim on performance for Immunocal. We were laying the scientific groundwork to be able to talk to and collaborate with the top scientific minds in the areas of high-performance sports. When I received the first contact from our next speaker many years ago, inquiring about Dr. Droge's work, we were ready. Again, little did I know at the time how important this relationship would become. But all I can say is how fortunate we are to have him here with us today, sharing his wisdom on the use of Immunocal in high-performance sports. Dr. Nathan Lewis is the lead performance nutrition scientist at the English Institute of Sports. He's a clinical and performance nutrition scientist for Oracle since its inception 11 years ago. He's an invited research fellow at St. Mary's University, and he's a member of our scientific advisory board. Nathan began his career as a clinical dietitian specializing in intensive care medicine, and then moved full-time into elite sport after being headhunted by the English Institute of Sports. Nathan currently works as the lead performance nutrition scientist for the English Institute of Sport, having worked as a senior performance nutritionist for the EIS for several Olympic cycles, including Beijing, London, Rio, and now the 4th, Tokyo. Nathan has delivered nutritional programs to optimize health and performance to many athletes over the years, including world, Olympic, and European medalists across the spectrum of Olympic sports. Outside of Olympic sports, Nathan has experienced consulting to professional teams in the English Premier League, PGA, NBA, NHL, and MLB through his role as the lead performance and clinical nutritionist and scientist at the Sports and Science data analytics company, Oracle. His research to date is focused on biomarkers, oxidative stress in elite endurance athletes, and unexplained underperformance syndrome, or what's commonly known as overtraining syndrome. He's published papers in peer-reviewed sports medicine journals, science journals, and collaborated on various book chapters in the field of sports nutrition and exercise science. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Nathan Lewis to the call.
Hello, John. Hiya. How are you?
It's such a privilege for me, and you know what's so exciting for me is I've been working with you, and Dr. Gutman's been working with you, Immunotech's been working with you for over 10 years, and we've seen what's been going on behind the scenes for 10 years, and now we get to share it with everybody on the call. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity for you to share how Immunocal has acted, you know, based on what you've seen in our clinical data, but more importantly, what you've seen practically and how these athletes responded, and how you've used Immunocal as a tool in terms of these high-performance athletes. So as part of this, I'd like you to also share with the audience what exactly is the English Institute of Sport and what exactly is Oracle in terms of giving a little history and what they do to give some context to these athletes and the setting that you're working in.
Sure. No, I'm happy to do that, John. Yeah, so the English Institute of Sport is now a rather large organization that has training centers dotted throughout the UK. It provides sports medicine, sports science services to elite level athletes through national training programs. So athletes come and base themselves at the center. It's an athlete focused, coach-led program with all the various sciences wrapped around that. There's also an internal research and development program which we operate as well. And the Institute of Sport has been up and running since, I think, 2004 now. And certainly, I think no one would dispute that the successes that Team GB has had in the last several Olympic Games are down to the sports medicine and sports science and coaching and support that sort of comes through UK Sport and the English Institute of Sport. So yeah, I'm very proud to be part of that system, definitely. And it's allowed me to travel for a few Olympic Games myself, and you know, go out to Rio, go out to Beijing, and fingers crossed, hopefully I get to Tokyo next year, which you know, disappointed it wasn't happening this summer, but excited that it could still be happening next year.
Yeah, and if my memory serves me correctly, that first call you gave us over 10 years ago was for some Olympic level sailors that you wanted to put on the program, I believe.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I love reflecting on that moment when you and Jimmy came to meet myself and the head of sports science and medicine of British Olympic Sailing down on the south coast around the time of the Beijing Olympic Games, and that team is still the most successful Olympic sailing team in history, winning 6 medals out of a possible 11, of which 4 were gold. And yeah, we were looking for a product that could really support the athletes, the sailors' health, because with long hours on the water, then coming in, spending long hours in the gym as well. So they've got to develop the technical skills on the water and then all the physical qualities in the gym as well. Training is pretty hard for those guys. You know, most people think, you know, what, sailors, really? Is it that hard? You know, it is. It's not just gin and tonics and sunshine. So yeah.
And then through the evolution, I remember Hogden Moore was formed, and then from Hogden Moore we formed Oracle. And so maybe you can explain what Oracle does, and you know, the most recent arrangement you have with the NBA PA Association.
Yeah, of course. So Oracle, as we pronounce it, so it's sort of broken up as OR recovery. So OR is Irish for gold, so it's gold recovery. And the two founders, Dr. Brian Moore, is a PhD in hematology, so his expertise was biomarkers, and he'd been working within the English Institute of Sport set up for a good number of years. So that's how I knew him. We'd worked together for quite a period of time. And then the other founder was Dr. Andy Hodgson, who's a consultant hematologist. So the company was very much founded with expertise in biomarkers, and then I was brought on as the first scientist and practitioner in 2010. And essentially the company is built, operates around providing biomarker services to athletes, but it's much more than that. We have a team of sort of mathematicians, so there's a lot of data analysis and bioanalytics. We use software to deliver our systems to coaches and athletes, and I'll touch a little bit more on it throughout the presentation. But yeah, I mean, when I put up some of the slides and you see some of the franchises and brands and teams that Orico is now working with, it's yeah, you have to pinch yourself now and again to say, is this real? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a dream for me and the company to see our product being used in these these elite segments of sport, and so let's get started and learn how you use it and with these different sports and different athletes.
Great, sounds good, John. So just a bit of housekeeping. I'm going to turn off my camera. It's 7 p.m. in the evening here, so it's going to get dark and the light's going to change. If you hear, you may hear in the background occasionally my young son, so apologies for that. But just in case you hear some child noise in the background, it's him near bedtime. So I'm going to stop my video. And I'm going to look to share my screen, and we can get started. Give us a few minutes here to it does say here just host disabled attendee screen sharing, so I don't know if I can be given access just temporarily to share my screen here. If I can't, then if you make me a host.
We're going to take care of you here, so just a second.
Thanks, Keith.
So, okay, you can now share your screen.
Fantastic. Let's get that on there. It's just loading up the. Okay. So, is everyone seeing a slide that says insights into the use of Immunocal in elite sport?
Yeah, we're good.
Excellent. Let's get going. So I wanted to give you a bit more of an introduction to Orico. And so I've just got a couple of slides that have been put together by one or two of my colleagues in Orico for me. So, to read off the slide, but it really gives you a lot more context. Everything we do is about helping the best athletes on the planet be ready to perform. So we do this through analyzing biomarkers in the blood that drive performance. Using advanced machine learning, we match this with an athlete's physical load, their travel load, their sleep data, and their performance data to provide personalized training, nutrition, and recovery strategies that have been proven to help players. So ultimately, it's about allowing players to better tolerate the physical demands of their training environment and game environment. Critical is reducing days lost to injury and illness, and we'll elaborate a lot more on that. Helping them sustain performance through better continuity with regards to training, and of course looking to prolong careers as well. I'm sure we can all think of elite athletes that unfortunately their careers have been cut short through injuries. And there's some nice quotes that we've got here. So rather than me sort of saying what the company is good at, it's always nice when our clients are happy to provide some feedback. We've got Chelsea Lane here from the Atlanta Hawks saying, I selected Orico as their world leaders in bioanalytics. They possess unrivaled expertise in interpreting biomarker data. We have Dawn Scott from the USA Women's National Soccer Team, so World Cup winners, saying Orico is an integral part of their World Cup preparations. We've got a team doctor in the English Premier League thanking us for reducing injury incidents. And we've got Casey Smith over at the Dallas Mavericks saying through working with us, he had 100% availability from an illness perspective. And then which we'll talk about as well on the last comment is, thank you for bringing back a former world champion from severe fatigue. And some of my research is sort of focused around overtraining syndrome, or what we have referred to over this side of the pond as unexplained underperformance syndrome. So let's get into things. I wanted to start just by sort of touching on the science. So, as a scientist, it's a proportion of my time is spent diving into the literature, the medical literature, the scientific literature, and I'm looking for research studies which will help us find an edge. And I'm looking for research studies that are conducted with a high degree of quality and a low risk of bias. So ideally, we're looking for randomized controlled trials. And then, of course, if there's enough of the RCTs, then maybe some systematic reviews and meta-analyses have been published. So as this paper by Lanz back in the Journal of Applied Physiology in 1999 that really caught my attention. I didn't discover the paper till around the time of the Beijing Olympics, but I'm glad I did, because it was through this work that sort of prompted me to get in touch with Immunotech and in turn, start my relationship with Jimmy and John and are using Immunocal for the last decade. So that high quality evidence is really important for us in Orico and in the English Institute of Sport. I guess it would be sort of remiss of me to start any presentation on nutritional supplements without just giving this caveat. So you will see two logos down in the bottom left, Informed Sport and Informed Choice. So you will see them on products that have gone through rigorous testing in an independent laboratory. And that testing is to test the product to ensure that it does not contain any substances, which often is hormones, that may result in an athlete inadvertently failing a doping test. Unfortunately, there are a number of athletes out there that have fallen foul of taking nutritional supplements that haven't been tested, and it's cost them a ban. And this, on the right-hand side of the slide, as I look at it, there's an IOC-sponsored study here that was carried out quite a good few years ago now, back in 2002. But it really opened the world's eyes to the risk of just walking into a shop, purchasing a product off the shelf or purchasing a product off the internet. So out of 634 samples that they analysed, 15% of those contained anabolic androgenic steroids not declared on the label, and there was a further 10% that data was unclear. So certainly 15%, maybe as much as 25%. So that's 1 in 6 to sort of 1 in 4. There's a degree of risk there, isn't there? And you can see that those nutritional products were obtained from a variety of different countries around the globe. So for us in elite sport, we'll only work and use products that are of very high quality and have been through the appropriate testing to ensure that we've got confidence in their use. And certainly Immunocal has been tested now through Informed Sport and Informed Choice for a good number of years, and we've been using it for over a decade. So very pleased with the product. I thought we'd give some definitions for those who aren't as familiar with some of the terminology, because we will dip into some of the science. So you'll hear me talking a little bit about oxidative stress. So this was first defined going back to 1985. We got a nice simple definition by Professor Sears: a disturbance in the pro-antioxidant balance in favor of the former, so in favor of the pro-oxidants. And you can see this seesaw visual in front of you, the blue triangle, and we have pro-oxidants and antioxidants, and there's always a balance. The body's always going to try and bring it back and restore homeostasis and achieve a balance between the two. What we've learned through a lot of research carried out over the last 25 years, 30 years, is it's a lot more complicated than we originally thought. So reactive oxygen species, what used to be referred to as free radicals, were primarily thought as being just harmful molecules that they cause cell damage and they didn't do any good. What we've now grown to understand is actually they act as signaling molecules. So they play a really, really important role within the cell and between organs and systems. They can act to switch on certain genes that code for certain proteins. And then through switching on those genes, we can build new proteins and the cell can adapt to the stimulus. So with exercise, we see an increase in reactive oxygen species. It's an acute increase. Once the exercise is discontinued, that burst of reactive oxygen species settles down. But in the meantime, they've switched on a lot of genes that are helping the body adapt and improve, physiologically speaking, to the exercise. One of the key adaptations is increases in antioxidant enzymes. So you can You can read more about oxidative stress, which we've sort of retitled as alterations in redox homeostasis in this paper published in Sports Medicine. So this was putting together 30 years worth of research. Myself and a few colleagues, we reviewed every single paper and pulled it together and wrote this paper up, which really sort of summarizes really everything to date quite nicely in that space. But I think what this slide probably is conveying, or at least I hope it's conveying, is this balance between pro-oxidant and antioxidant can be quite complex. There's a lot of factors, as you can see, that are influencing this. So, you know, first and foremost, you can see training on both sides of the equation. As I touched upon, you know, training produces an increase in reactive oxygen species. If there's a nice balance between the training load and recovery, we then get a nice upregulation in antioxidant systems. Injury and illness, by contrast, we get big spikes in oxidative stress, large increases in reactive oxygen species. And this is certainly in the context of injury, the body or the white blood cells use these reactive oxygen species to target the virus or the bacteria. But invariably there's some collateral damage that can come about. So we use some of our monitoring, which I'll touch upon to capture information around that. I've highlighted in green sleep loss and psychological stress because they're not as well known as being disturbances in oxidative stress. So for example, there's some nice research in law students showing quite marked increase in oxidative stress undergoing exams. So, you know, take the exercise equation out of it, psychological stress itself can cause quite a marked increase in reactive oxygen species and cause a disturbance in this pro-antioxidant balance. And sleep is pivotal. So large disturbances in sleep increase inflammation, stress hormones, and they'll give rise to oxidative stress. And that's most likely through disturbances in melatonin metabolism. So as you can see, complex area, a lot of things going on, but through monitoring the athlete closely, looking at their blood work, we can make more informed decisions about what's happening with the athlete, which physiological systems are being disturbed, and what interventions are most appropriate at a particular point in time. So my kind of sort of final slide really on the concept of oxidative stress and redox physiology. So this is just trying to put together a nice visual around hormesis. Hormesis is a term that is being increasingly applied in the field of redox biology and oxidative stress. It's taken from toxicology, or world of pharmacology and toxicology, where a sort of small dose of something may stimulate adaptation or a stress response, whereas a large dose can cause harm or indeed maladaptation. You know, an obvious example might be something like alcohol, where a small dose can have some beneficial health effects, but clearly a large dose can be quite detrimental. So what I'm trying to convey in this schematic really is that you've got the blue arrows, one along the vertical axis, the horizontal axis, showing the degree of oxidative stress, and then we've got improvements in physiological function as we move up the vertical axis. And as you track up through, follow this red line, this curve, starting from a detrained state up to optimum performance. Yes, there's increases in oxidative stress, but we're seeing the athlete upregulate their antioxidant systems. They're adapting, they're improving their performance, okay? But if there's a gross imbalance between training load and recovery, or indeed maybe on top of the training, there's some superimposed stress, a relationship breakup, an illness, some financial worries, whatever it may be, exams, if it's a very young athlete that's trying to balance university life, that may start to tip the balance. And oxidative stress may continue to increase, driving the athlete down into this sort of more maladaptive state. And on the way, we may see increases in inflammation and disruption of mitochondrial function. And of course, right at the bottom of the curve, you know, I put this image there to denote chronic disease. Because yes, in chronic disease, we see oxidative stress. Of course we do. It's part of the pathophysiology. But the difference between exercise, where we get an acute short-term increase in oxidative stress, is with chronic disease, we've got permanently elevated levels of reactive oxygen species, okay, that are being switched on and being produced continually, and there's overwhelming the body's systems. So it's not adapting. We're seeing increases in inflammation, and in fact, if you've got persistent oxidative stress, it can switch on and increase inflammation quite notably. So that's me on redox biology. So let's get a bit more into the sort of applied side which gives you a bit more insight into what I do with Orico and English Institute of Sport and how I've used Immunocal over the years. So what you're looking at on this slide is, firstly in the bottom corner, you'll see this picture of the road. And we use this with coaches to try and help them understand how Orico operates to a degree, in the sense that the athlete is on a journey. So at the start of every season, the training gets mapped out. We sit down and we look at the season. Every coach, scientist will do that in their respective sports. They'll know where the key competitions are. They'll know where they might be going away for training camps. So then we will put in place blood tests, which on using this diagram and this analogy here are the street lights. So as we go down this road. And then more frequently, we may have the cat's eyes on the road, which is the week-to-week oxidative stress and inflammation. And alongside that as well, we'll have collection of more sort of subjective data around how the athlete is feeling. You know, we'd be recording, say, how happy they are on a scale, fatigue levels, and sleep patterns. And all of that data is aggregated together and used to make decisions around athlete well-being. What you're looking at as well is a screenshot of an iPad, and on there is some of our proprietary software. So this is just one example of how we might monitor oxidative stress. So you can see a purple line, and that's our marker of oxidative damage. And then you can see a blue line, which is our marker of antioxidant defense. And they're being measured in the athlete. And then we've got these dashed lines that you're seeing. And that's where ideally we want the athlete to operate. So through some mathematical calculations, we're able to state with a high degree of confidence, you know, where the athlete should be operating from a perspective of oxidative stress. And as they move outside those lines, there's a greater probability of injury and illness. And so that will be fed back to coach and athlete to help them stay on track and on plan. There's some of our research papers there, which you can dig into a bit more around some of this research that we've been pioneering now for a good number of years. So it's important to recognize that, yes, we can increase glutathione through using products such as Immunocal, very effective in doing so, but we can also increase glutathione through exercise. As I highlighted, that's one of the key adaptations that comes with exercise training. So I just wanted to demonstrate that for you nice and neatly with this particular study. You've got two figures in front of you, and you can see the clear white boxes pre-training, and then you've got the hash boxes denoting post-training. And then we've got glutathione being measured. And you can see that there's a nice increase, whether it's aerobic training, whether it's circuit training, or whether it's a combination of the two. All of those three different training programs in this particular study nicely increase glutathione. Just to, I guess, to sort of reinforce the point, some research down below in the blue boxes. So this is a different enzyme, but also involved in metabolizing reactive oxygen species. It's called superoxide dismutase. And you can see different concentrations based on different sports. So these athletes were sampled in these different sports. So and it's interesting because what you see is swimmers is low volume and low impact. So the training stress isn't as great as, say, someone like triathletes right at the other end of the spectrum, where you've got high volume, very high volume, running, cycling, swimming, and you've also got the impact that comes with running, and that results in higher levels still of this particular antioxidant enzyme. So even though we know training influences it, the nature of the training, certainly in a high-level athletes, can influence the expression of these enzymes. And we will track these enzymes and measure them in athletes to give us an understanding of how they're adapting. And of course, we put a lot of weight on measuring glutathione, particularly because we know we can target that directly through using Immunocal. Immunocal, it's not just about functioning as an antioxidant. The product does increase glutathione very effectively, but it also is able to favorably modulate and support the immune system. As John was talking about at the beginning of the call, the research extends back several decades. You know, you've got some fantastic immunologists and academics that have done research in this space many, many years ago. And there are very, very few products you'll find on the market that have the level of research underpinning them. And this is what so excited me when I first came across Immunotech and met with John and Jimmy. So we've got immunomodulators. So Immunocal, of course, these proteins are not denatured. So they're intact. So when the whey is extracted from milk, many other generic whey proteins are not undenatured. And you see destruction of these immune modulators. That's not the case with Immunocal. But also, of course, it provides a full complement of amino acids. So not just the high cysteine content for boosting glutathione, but look, you can see in the blue chart there, high levels of leucine, one of the branch chain amino acids that's so crucial for switching on muscle protein synthesis. So, and this really leads me on to my next slide quite nicely, which I do often get asked, well, Immunocal or NAC, because we can aggressively increase glutathione through using NAC. So does Immunocal offer anything more? And I think it does. I think in part, as I've just highlighted, it's a source of amino acids. So not only can we target the glutathione and the antioxidant system, I can provide a full complement of all the essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids to the athlete as well, which is integral really in allowing tissue to remodel and repair. And as we'll come to, athletes have much higher protein requirements than the general population. What you're also seeing here is 2 studies that showed a negative outcome from using NAC. So NAC altered substrate metabolism in some elite cyclists, reduced mean power output by around 5%, which is a huge margin. And then you've also got another study that wanted to really explore the effect of NAC on skeletal muscle remodeling and repair after extensive muscle damage. And it showed the muscle did not remodel and repair fully using NAC versus the placebo. So there was better muscle recovery over, I think it was 10 days with the placebo than there was with NAC. So NAC comes with a downside in my view, or certainly potential for one. Immunocal is much more complementary to the athlete's recovery. So how do we use Immunocal in elite sport? Probably what you've all been waiting for. So we get here eventually. So yeah, excuse my preamble to bring us to this point. But I am going to focus on how we use it in elite sport. But what I'm talking about is absolutely applicable to the recreational athlete. And we could perhaps argue more so, because perhaps the recreational athlete is more prone to training errors. They're unlikely to have a world-class coach supporting them. They're more likely to be juggling working life because they're not earning a living from their sport. They may well be juggling family, work life. They could even be studying alongside and trying to fit all their sport work in and around that. That's a lot. And clearly Immunocal is going to help them adapt to that stress and help keep them on the road. So, just because I'm talking about elite athletes doesn't mean this doesn't have strong application to the recreation athlete. In many ways it does, if not more so. So I've taken some quotes here from one of my papers, which I'll reference in a second, because we've got a couple of slides on prevention of injury and illness. So this is pivotal. Any practitioner, any scientist working in elite sport is going to be looking to prevent injuries and illness. Because if you're not healthy, you can't train. And if you can't train, you can't compete. And no one wants to see all that talent sitting on the bench, not able to go to Olympic Games, not able to compete in a World Cup, or a Super Bowl, whatever it may be. So there is a good body of research showing loss of training time due to illness and injury is a major determinant of performance goal success or failure. And indeed, every time I read these statistics in the last paragraph, it never ceases to amaze me. So this was unpublished data till I sort of put it out there in one of our papers. But the UK Sport and English Institute of Sport, as I alluded to, we carry out research, most of which doesn't get published. But in the 12 months prior to the Rio Olympics, there were 108,000 training days lost to injury and 17,173 training days lost to illness as a result of 4,685 separate injury or illness incidents experienced by just over 1,000 athletes across 38 sports. That's a lot of days of injury and illness. So clearly for us, this is a big priority. So I set about with some colleagues carrying out some research, because no one had done any, or certainly published any, that was showing, look, is there clear evidence of increased oxidative stress in athletes when they're ill and when they're injured? because we know that they've got highly efficient, upregulated antioxidant systems as a result of years and years of training. But do we still see a significant increase in oxidative stress? And in short, we do. You know, you've got two figures presented in front of you here, some nice p-values with moderate to large effect sizes, as you can see from the Cohen's d values placed on the figure. So you can read this paper if you want to explore and understand a little bit more around the role of oxidative stress in injury and illness. Clearly, with monitoring athletes, we want to be able to intervene before the injury or illness presents. And we have a good idea of what factors constitute increasing that risk, you know, nutrition being a big one. But if it were unfortunate that the athlete encounters an injury or indeed an illness, through what we've noted as well through measuring oxidative stress is we get this big spike. So we can use our monitoring process as well to see when the illness or the injury is starting to resolve. And particularly with illness, we see symptoms recover quite quickly, but the oxidative stress can often persist. And that can help guide our decisions around how quickly an athlete may return to high intensity training. But we'll be using Immunocal in a targeted approach. So I like to use it in a targeted way because I want athletes to be compliant and I don't want athletes to get taste fatigue. So in some instances, the illness prone athlete, I'm going to put them on Immunocal all year round. You might ask, what's illness prone? Or, you know, give me some numbers to allow me to define that. So if you look into the research, generally 3 to 4 infections a year is classified as sort of illness prone. So if we have an athlete that is unfortunate enough that they're picking up frequent illnesses, invariably we know that there's quite often the nutrition needs addressing, and Immunocal can be a good way of sort of bolstering that recovery. Recovery and adaptation. So athletes work through various training phases, right? The training load is progressed because we want to allow them to get fitter. If we didn't change the training load, they wouldn't improve. So we've got to keep pushing them. And as they go through different training phases, there's also periods of really high workload, which are then invariably coupled with a bit of a deload to allow them to supercompensate and recover and get the increases in performance. What the research has shown us over the last decade is increasing protein intake during periods of high training load is hugely advantageous to the athlete. So these are really quite high protein intakes as well, which you might find surprising. So, you know, if we look at some of the research, a non-athlete, you're going to be looking to consume around about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. The endurance athlete, the research will suggest 1.6 grams per kilogram protein, gram of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So doubling for the endurance athlete. Strength or power athletes will be a little bit higher again. What we've learned now is for these really intense training periods, we can be taking up to 2.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. And indeed, the bottom study was as high as 3 grams. So really increasing the protein intake around really heavy training periods just gets on top of the remodeling and the repair. It provides the building blocks, which I touched upon that Immunocal has. It's a protein, so it's got all those respective amino acids. It provides the additional building blocks as and when the athlete needs them. If you give extra protein when it's not needed, it's just metabolic waste and it gets peed out. But when the extra demand is there, particularly physically, but also psychologically, the body can utilize that protein. And what you also see on the slide is just a nice simple graphic just showing you that how the day might be structured. So 8 a.m. protein feed, 11 a.m. after training, recovery snack based around whey protein, 1 p.m. lunch, 4 p.m. another snack, protein based after training, dinner time. Then in some athletes, we have a third training session, then snack before bed, get up, do the same thing again. Very disciplined, very structured. In some instances and in many instances, the athlete is not eating because they're hungry, they're eating to a structured program, just as they're training to a structured program. The photo there is of Font-Romeu. So this is an altitude training camp that every year for the last 13 years I've gone out to with one of the sports I work very closely with. Unfortunately, we didn't make it there this summer for obvious reasons. But what you can see at altitude is a loss of appetite. And actually you can see that even in intense periods of training at sea level as well. So it's important that the athletes are given structure and they're advised accordingly, because if you just rely on appetite, it's unlikely they're going to be able to meet those increased demands. professional sports that Orico works with. So we've got some nice examples here. So we've got Tottenham Hotspur. So Immunocal sits in their supplement cupboard, which they use with targeted athletes based around biomarkers and recovery. So that's the Premier League. Artemis, so World Cup sailing. The head of sports science and medicine used Immunocal for the America's Cup. And indeed, he had a couple of illness-prone sailors that used Immunocal. And I also used it for the Olympics in Rio as well, which I believe one of them won an Olympic gold. You've got NBA basketball, where we've used it and used it, and pro golf as well. So not the physical demands that you see in the other sports with pro golf, but there's a lot of travel there. And anyone who's ever played golf to a decent level knows that it can be quite stressful. You know, there's a lot of time to think, which for some people may be an advantage, for others it may be a disadvantage. So our poor golfers are doing a lot of travel, even if it is first class. You'd be surprised they can pick up quite a lot of infections. And John alluded to an area, and this is an area that I focused some of my research. We set up a clinic around the time I was doing my PhD in London, and we contacted doctors around the UK sports system and said, look, if you've got athletes that you diagnose with unexplained underperformance syndrome, refer them into us. So what is UPS? You know, John alluded to it, is essentially is overtraining syndrome. We call it unexplained underperformance syndrome for a number of reasons, but primarily, and the term was coined by a doctor who's himself an ex-athlete who went on to be a medical doctor within the British Olympic setup. And he felt in his experience, and I would agree with him in my experience, that overtraining syndrome suggests that the error or the cause of the presentation is down to the training. And that can really quite adversely affect the relationship between coach and athlete, because the athlete may look at that and go, you give me a diagnosis of overtraining syndrome. I am knackered. I don't have the motivation to get up in the morning. I feel pretty depressed at this point in time. I'm way, way short on what I should be doing training wise, and performance is just, you know, the numbers along are grossly disappointing. And these are the kind of features you have with the condition. It can be very debilitating for athletes. It has finished careers, and some athletes don't bounce back, which is why we were really keen to get into this space and provide some support. And we've published some work around that. There's a review paper that is open access that you can go and read, entitled "Can Clinicians and Scientists Explain and Prevent Unexplained Underperformance Syndrome?" And that will tell you a lot more. But for us, in our experience, it's rarely the training per se that tips the balance. Yes, the athlete has been training very hard as an elite level athlete, but in a large proportion of these athletes, it's an infection, a prior illness that has tipped the balance. Maybe they've tried to get back and train too hard, too quickly, too fast, because they're worried, you know, I've missed 3 weeks from illness. I've got to catch this up. I've got to make this up. Athletes, you know, they're like racehorses in respect that they always want to do more. It's rare to find an athlete that wants to do less, and that's what, you know, helps them get them to the top of the tree, is their work ethic along with their talent. So yeah, the psychological stress as well, that can be a tipping balance, particularly for the younger athlete who may be juggling exams, and indeed, you know, relationships can sometimes hit them harder as well. So what you're looking at over on the left-hand slide is a published case study. So we put this out there. We wanted to show the world that we use Immunocal to help support athletes back from overtraining syndrome. So that's where the photo is of this particular elite level athlete. She was a world-class rower. She was diagnosed with overtraining syndrome. She hadn't had a great world championships, so that performance preyed on her mind going into the winter. In order to try and improve and push on, the coach did increase the training load. So she was doing more resistance training. And then coupled with that, she picked up quite a nasty infection in the winter. So these three elements came together to really present with this unexplained underperformance syndrome. Eventually, we got her back. our work is very much focused around targeting the antioxidant system and inflammation. That's what we do through nutrition. We then assist the athlete with advice around sleep patterns as well, because it's so important for facilitating repair, and work with the coaches and their scientists on the ground around monitoring the training and bringing the athlete back. I've just highlighted with the red square there, you can see, it gives some insight to how we restructured the nutrition. Clearly, vegetable serves was greatly increased, fruit serves was increased, nuts, seeds, and then protein was increased with Immunocal being added in. And you can see on the dietary analysis that some of these nutrient levels were much higher as a result. So though you can learn much more about some of the work that we've done around UPS there. And it was basically down to the fact that this athlete was, she was quite happy for us to put this in print and put it out there, because she knew how debilitating the condition was. And when you sit down, and I've interviewed her afterwards, she said, in the time, I couldn't see the wood for the trees. I didn't know I had it. I didn't, because it creeps up slow and insidious. It doesn't happen overnight. The athlete doesn't wake up and go, I've got ups. It gradually creeps up. And once she was fully recovered, she could reflect back on that period and knew that things weren't right. And then my final slide, really, just to sort of touch upon this area, because I think this is an exciting area. We had a conference in Montreal, Immunotech did a few years ago, and brought all their scientists together. Dan presented some of this work. So Dan's published a number of papers in around glutathione, and this particular paper is looking at using Immunocal from a preventative perspective, so giving it prior to the traumatic brain injury, and then looking at the effects on cognition and histopathological indices of TBI, so the effect on the actual tissue itself, degree of recovery. So I think, we've all seen the movie with Will Smith. It's now become sort of common knowledge, really, about the impact of concussions in NFL, and we're learning more as well about football, which is a game played all around the globe. Who would think that something as fundamental as heading the ball, could over time give rise to some mental health issues down the road. So I think this is an area that we're going to see more research. We're going to learn more, and hopefully with learning more, we're going to be able to do more. And protect our athletes. And that's it from me. So gives me the opportunity to say thanks to the audience. If you're interested, you can learn more about Oracle there. Obviously we're on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm afraid I'm not big on social media. I only generally tweet when I've got a paper to publish, something of that nature. I don't have enough time to get engrossed in social media. So thanks so much, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Nathan, it's John. I have one concept that I'd like you to elaborate on. When we talk about amateur athletes at the lower end of the scale, you can talk about big gains that you can make through intervention. At the very top of the pinnacle of sport, we're talking about marginal gains, very small gains. And, people ask me what Oracle does. I say they mine the minutia. So they're looking for very small gains. And so maybe you could talk about exactly just those small gains that you can make, over the course of a training cycle, and now what that means across a soccer team or an NHL team or an NBA team, adding all those small gains up.
Yeah, absolutely right, John. It's become increasing recognition over the years that the monitoring athletes is hugely important. In professional sports, athletes particularly get to that level. Certainly if we take basketball, if we take soccer, they get to that level primarily based on their skill, not because of, outstanding physical qualities. They can have that as well. And the best of the best, the Michael Jordans of this world, the Ronaldos of this world do have, fantastic physical qualities. But monitoring athletes is important because they have to be able to train to maintain a level of fitness. They have to be able to train to maintain the skill level and continually improve. And they also need to compete. And invariably, they're competing week to week. And therefore, knowing when to intervene in which athlete at the right time is crucially important. And you can only do that if you've got data. Otherwise, it's guesswork. And yes, coaches can look at an athlete and they may have some understanding of, oh, he looks, you know, not quite on it today. You know, his balance, he's dropped 3 of those, or, you know, last 2 shots he's had, he's just skied. You know, they may see elements of that. But with hard data, it kind of reduces that subjectivity. And it really fine-tunes the conversations and the decision making, because you can then know what to get into. You know, okay, we're seeing a disturbance in inflammation, we're seeing a disturbance in oxidative stress, or if we're doing more broad sampling, we can see disturbances in iron metabolism or the endocrine system. And alongside that, we've got sleep data. Now his sleep's fine, okay, so we've ruled out sleep, but he is showing some fatigue, his inflammation skewed, so is his oxidative stress. Let's get into that, let's dig down. And so that allows us to support the athlete and coach and really improve that decision making, reduce injuries, particularly reduce those illnesses, and keep the athlete being able to play, give them that longevity, allow them to showcase their skills week to week, rather than have to sit on the bench, which in itself can be stressful for the athlete. You know, every time they get an injury, invariably the psychologist is often getting involved because it can be really difficult for them. So yeah, I think you know, for us the big thing is monitoring and giving that information to our teams so they can be more informed to intervene and support their athletes at the right times with the right information. And we can provide those recovery solutions. We can help give them, you know, we spend hours a day just carrying out science, you know, not only reviewing other people's science, but producing our own. And we view ourselves as, you know, I think, I forget the numbers, you know, Brian, Dr. Moore has them on his fingertips, but I think that there's in the region of about 25 employees in Orico, and I think, you know, there's somewhere in the region of sort of 16 or those are PhDs, and, you know, there's several that are, you know, currently PhD students as well. So there's a lot of science and there's a lot of research going on in there.
Well, Nathan, you know, I just want to say again, and I'm sure I'm speaking for John and Keith and everybody on the call, you know, how valued this was and how insightful it was to have you on here speaking on that perspective. I mean, I learned things on this call, and I'm sure everybody else is. So from all of us, thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, John. It's absolute pleasure. I always enjoy talking with you. It's a shame we don't get to meet face to face very often, but always a pleasure talking with you. Okay, thanks. Over to you, John.
John and Dr. Lewis, thank you so much. And just 2 things. One, Dr. Lewis, is just a quick question. I know, you know, we spoke about it the other day, but for the benefit of all the great folks that are spending time with us, your last slide where you referenced Dr. Linzman's work on TBIs and some of the other doctors, I think it's really beneficial. And if you wouldn't mind commenting on this, that yourself, Dr. Linzman, Dr. Kongshaw, and the other doctors around the world that are doing research in your specific areas of expertise are collaborating and, you know, kind of looking at each other's homework, if you will, and collaborating and you know, how to use Immunocal on such a variety of different situations. So if you just wouldn't mind commenting on that a little bit, how you and some of our other researchers collaborate.
Yeah, so I mean, good example is through sort of conferences. So, you know, Immunotech very kindly sort of set a conference and invited us all together, come and share our thoughts, share ideas, you know, learn from each other, because, you know, Dan doesn't operate in, Dr. Linzman doesn't operate in the elite world. I do. Likewise, you know, I don't operate in his world doing these fantastic studies, incredibly detailed studies into traumatic brain injury. So, you know, we know when we bring scientists together like that, it's a great learning opportunity. And it's from that, you know, we can talk about doing research and talk about how we might plan to do more in this particular space. So, you know, I think the mental health is becoming an increasingly recognized and important area. And if I just elaborate a little bit more there, so the English Institute of Sport, you know, we have a whole division now that is involved this last Olympic cycle. It's a whole directorate entitled Athlete Health. in addition to the sports medicine division, physiotherapy, sports scientists, etc., 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 sports psychology, and all of those elements invariably cross over into mental health. But we see this as being so important because there's a great deal of pressure placed on athletes. You know, if you look at the Olympic Games, you've trained, you know, it might have taken you 10 years to get to that point where you finally are producing the performance enough sufficient to qualify. So you've done well enough at the World and the Europeans. You get to the Olympic Games and you've got, in some cases, one opportunity to bring the performance of your life on one day with the whole world watching you. I mean, that is an unbelievable amount of pressure. You know, when my dad used to watch me play football, that was enough pressure, thanks. You know, I didn't need several billion people watching me. You know, that's, so I think, you know, supporting their mental health, because the disappointment that can come with not reaching those highs, or indeed having a hugely successful career, but then recognizing it's all over and where do you go next? You know, and again, this is all part and parcel of the athlete, you know, looking at the athlete as a whole. And looking after their mental health is important in the sport, but ensuring that we continue to address it post-sporting environment as well, so they can live long and healthy lives after providing us with so much entertainment.
And you know, just to add to that, you know, being around sports my whole life and having, you know, knowing so many guys that played, you know, professional sports, to your point, you know, nothing is sadder than to see a guy who was at the top of his game at one time, and, you know, maybe wearing a national championship ring or a Super Bowl ring or whatever it happens to be. And of course, extremely proud of that feat, but in later life having, you know, horrible health as a result of not having taken care of themselves. So, you know, once again, the research that you guys are doing is so fundamentally important in this day and age, because as you say, you know, sports have a meter to them, you know, and it eventually ends, and then you have to go on and do other things with your life and everything else. And it's just so important to keep, you know, the athletic community healthy. And of course, learning from, you know, those elite athletes that could apply to the weekend warriors, you know, right down to the person who maybe is even immune compromised, you know, all the things that are learned from, you know, the people who are physically gifted, you know, and most of the time at younger ages. So once again, what you guys are doing is foundational, and it's so important, and it's so appreciated. And I know I speak on behalf of everybody, not only on this call, but our hundreds of thousands of distributors around the world, how much we appreciate what Orico does and what you do individually, and what John Molson does to, you know, help to represent to us this great information. So once again, Dr. Lewis, thank you so much, and much appreciated on everybody's behalf over here.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you. So, hey, we're going to have another special speaker that is somebody that most of you know, but I'm going to turn the call over to my co-host and good friend, Keith Hooper, and he's going to introduce this young lady. You know her in one way, but you might not know something else about her that you'll know momentarily. So, Keith, take it away.
We are privileged, you know, great information, Dr. Lewis. And, you know, we want to take that information, and how do we use it? How do I use it? How do you use it? How do we take that there? And we invited our good friend Julie Gorham to join us today. And, you know, we were laughing that we wanted somebody that you know, could take that information and share it with us. So who better than a mom of an Immunocal kid and an Immunocal person that's been using it for 10 years, that came to the company because of needing the product for her own personal use. And she happens to be, you know, she's the top of the performance world. She's number 5 in the world in triathlete when she stopped performing at that level. She is just somebody that's special to all of us. You know, she used to be on the good side when she was in customer service, but now she's the director of global compliance. So, you know, we tease her a little bit about that, going to that other side. But, you know, Julie, you are a special person to us here with Immunotech. And I know John Molson and you have a couple things on how to take that incredible information from Dr. Lewis and make it so that all of us can use it. Welcome, Julie.
Oh, thank you, Keith. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, you know, from the dark side, I came out back into the light because Keith, because you asked me to, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for you, of course, for John, and for every single person listening. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It truly is amazing. I have pages full of notes. It's hard to be the one speaking after Dr. Lewis, to be quite honest with everybody, because I've been taking this product for over 10 years. I do a little bit of exercise on the side when I'm not wearing my compliance hat, as Keith said. And this information that we were just given is something that's just not readily available to the age group athlete, to the weekend warrior, to my 78-year-old father who still walks 18 holes of golf every single day of his life. It's just not available. And to get on the call like this and to get that information, I'm excited, I'm wowed, I'm not too sure what to say next, but thank you, Dr. Lewis, for sharing this, and thank you, John and Keith, for giving him the space to do so, because what important information. I hope I can kind of translate it a little bit for people who are listening, but yeah, thank you for having me and giving me the honor of trying to do that, because that was just an impressive presentation. Thank you, Dr. Lewis, once again. And John Molson, how you doing?
Hi, Julie.
Hi, bro. How are you?
I couldn't think of anybody better to explain it to us mere mortals. So is what Dr. Lewis went over applicable to us mere mortals? And, how would you, in, a couple of points, how would you explain it for the weekend warrior, the mom who's head of compliance, who's a triathlete, who has a son, who's active, who has a husband, who takes up a lot of her time?
Well, I think you just nailed it. I think that's exactly it. If we go back, I'm looking down at my notes, everybody. But to answer your question, John, I think if we go back to Dr. Lewis's presentation, and high level presentation on high performing athletes, he did have that chart about the balance, right, with the oxidative stress. So oxidative stress, just to explain it quickly to everybody, oxidative stress is when literally there's an imbalance in the free radicals in your body and the antioxidants in your body. I talk with my hands. I think everyone's used to me doing that. But there's basically an imbalance. And if we looked at this slide that Dr. Lewis put up, it had all the reasons, for elite performers, and then it had, a bunch of reasons that really might not have so much to do with high performing sport. And, two big things that I saw on that chart were sleep loss. Nobody knows anybody who, lacks any sleep. We're all getting 10 hours a night, solid right through the night, cozy in our beds. And, there was the big one, which was, psychological stress. And that is huge. And we might think that because we're not high performing elite athletes, Olympic athletes, because, we're the person who puts on our shorts and our dry fit and goes for a 5K a few times a week, that we don't fall into that, same concern about, really reducing that oxidative stress. But John, to the contrary, I think it's important for everybody to note, pro athletes live a very structured life, and it's not an easy job, but they definitely, live a very structured life. The wake up, the sleep, everything that happens, the training, the eating time. Dr. Lewis even said it, even their food is completely structured to a certain level. And the majority of people listening to us, I would think, and perhaps all their contacts, their friends and their family, don't have such perfect structure. And, people are working till late at night, trying to get the kids to their activities. People are trying to deal with, a household full of activities and different things that can arise. Being a mom myself, just going to my son's hockey game shoots my cortisol level to the sky, John, because it's stressful to watch. He plays defense. Like I can't even look anymore. So, everybody's stress level is very high for different reasons. Training is one reason why that level increases. And then you add on a life that is not so controlled. Nobody lives in a bubble. We live in the real world. So all of those different stress factors come to play in a mere mortal's life that are uncontrollable. And the only thing we can really try and do is control the lifestyle. How do we counteract that? Well, that comes with lifestyle. That comes by that exercise, freeing your mind, you know, getting out for some fresh air, getting out into the woods, into the forest, and of course, having that balanced diet that helps fight that oxidative stress. And I think what better way, in a very simple form, to have a balanced diet than looking at Immunocal, which is a natural product, a completely clean source of protein. We know, right, one of the highest biological active forms of protein that can be available to your body. It comes into play in everybody's life when we look at it that way. We have the ability to really reduce that oxidative stress in our body by just having a better lifestyle and having Immunocal play a role in our nutrition, which is something that we can control. While the world is going insane around us, we can control what we eat. And so putting
I have an
Immunocal.
important question for you.
Yeah.
Because as an elite athlete yourself, you go through training cycles. So certain times of the year, your training is of lesser quantity, less intensity. Other times of the year, it's greater quantity, greater intensity. So for all the weekend warriors out there and pro or semi-pro athletes, how do you cycle the Immunocal during those periods where you have less demand physiologically and other times when you have greater demand physiologically, combined with all the other things you do as a mom, head of compliance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
You know, I really hope that everybody gets to balance training with the job that they love, because I'm blessed to be able to do so here. You know, that's a great question, John, because you know, going back into the topic of what we can control, our diet is something that we can control. And when so the average athlete, and not just an elite athlete, if you take an average, someone who's training for a marathon, someone who's training for a half marathon, a triathlete, most training programs will take the athlete, that we can call us what you want. If you're out there and you're off the couch, to me, you're an athlete and you deserve a round of applause and congratulations. So take the athlete who's training for something, a competition of sort, a goal of sort. Normally their training program will go through what is called, the average training program will go through what is called periodization. So the standard average one that you will see is 3 weeks of a build of training. So there's a week one, which starts easy, and then the intensity, the volume, so your training load gets higher every week, going into the third week being a peak week. And then most athletes, because of how life is for the majority of the mere mortals, they'll have a recovery week, and then it starts again. So it goes on these cycles. So those are training blocks within your cycle. And in that, if we can control the controllables, using Immunocal as a tool, to me it's a tool, it's a secret weapon. I hope it's not a secret for long. I hope we all start to really, really yell really loud from the mountaintops, but it's a tool. And if we use Immunocal, as Dr. Lewis was saying, you know, they increase that protein in the elite athletes when they're in peak training, when they're looking at that peak performance. I would invite everybody to do so as well. So when you're taking your Immunocal every single day, you have your week one, your week two, that peak week, week three, don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Take that Immunocal before bed. I like to take it. People always ask me, well, how do you take it? I actually take it as my 3:30 p.m. snack. So Immunocal is my afternoon snack. But in my recovery week, when most people kind of tend to, okay, I'm going to reduce the calories a little bit because the training load is down, with Immunocal, I would say try the opposite. Test and see what works for you. Immunocal is an amazing tool for recovery. That is known to be true 100%. We heard Dr. Lewis say it too. So in that recovery week, I would invite people, John, to not be afraid to keep their amount of consumption of Immunocal in a day, to keep it on the high point, like in a peak period, because that'll just help the body strengthen. It'll help the body recover. It'll help us keep, you know, all those controllables under control so that we can deal, because life doesn't stop in week 4 of a training plan, right? The training load goes down, John, but we still go to work every day. We still have our families, and we still have this, you know, right now, quarantine life that is an added stress for a lot of people. So that's how I would suggest people cycle it. We hear a lot about those training loads, but in that recovery week, optimize your recovery using Immunocal. That would be my suggestion for everybody.
Well, thank you, Julie, and back to you, Keith.
Well, I've got a question for you, Julie. So when somebody's thinking about recovery and they think about athletes, what about the person that gets up in the morning and chases the kids around the house, sends them to school, and comes back and had a tough day? How important is that recovery for them so that they can have another day? I mean, isn't that the same thing?
Just as important, 100%, Keith, just as important. In fact, I would say chasing the kids around is probably, you know, the hardest and most stressful job that there is to do. 100%. Stress is stress. The body doesn't always know where that stress is coming from, but when you're in fight or flight mode, that cortisol level shoots, inflammation in the body, right? We know so many chronic conditions are due to oxidative stress, and that stress is coming at you from being a mom, from being a dad, from living in these crazy times, from doing a high stress job. For some people, recovery is stressful. For some people in training, just that recovery week or a recovery day can cause an enormous amount of stress in their bodies. So it's not just for the athlete. It's not just for Julie when she's racing, because there is no racing this year. Immunocal is there every single day to help every single one of us fight that oxidative stress, keep that inflammation in our bodies low so that we can all sleep better at night, right? And we can all have a better lifestyle. That is what it's here to do. It doesn't matter whether you're training or not training. Life deserves to be lived to the max. So let's recover properly so that tomorrow is a whole new day and it's a blank page and we can make wonderful things happen.
Well, thank you, Julie, and thank you so much for being here, the Inspector General.
It is an honor. It is an honor.
Great to have you with us.
Anything for you guys.
So
Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much. So now, John, we're going to take this and bring in some more science to wrap this up, right?
Well, we are, but before Julie leaves or John leaves, I hope they're not leaving, but we have a question. We do have a very large new group of people on. A lot of them are weekend warriors. They're the 2 or 3 time a week gym person that maybe is doing a 5K or some other athletic event, nowhere near as intense, obviously, as the people Dr. Lewis works with or either of you, for instance. But that 2 or 3 time a week person, you know, that goes to the gym, maybe they walk a little bit, maybe maybe they have an aspiration of, you know, I'm using a 5K as an example, there's a million other examples, but you know what I'm saying. What's your advice to them, Julie, or John, or both? Whoops, Kate's got to put her audio
on. Keith's got my back every single time, John.
There you go, you're on.
Always. Okay, so for the person, sorry, just repeat that because I was concerned about my mute. So for the person who's training for a 5K.
I'm just using a 5K as a simple example, right? Because most people, if they decide they want to run, you know, they don't start with a marathon, they start with a 5K, right?
That's
or they
smart.
start with, you know, they want to play racquetball or tennis or something. And maybe they haven't done anything for years, but they're back at the gym, right? Especially during this pandemic when people are saying, hey, let me take care of myself again. Maybe I have a little bit more time. What's your advice in terms of usage for them? How many times per day? You know, before or after workout? You know, all those kind of questions. I'd like you to answer that, and also John, and then we're going to get to Dr. Gutman, and I know he'll have a comment on that as well. So,
well, you know, John, to answer that, I'm actually going to quote my good friend, John Molson, because I have heard John answer so many questions about Immunocal and over the years. And I think John's answer that I have heard the most is what I default to now all the time. Just take it. So it's basically that. If you're going to make it complicated, just take it, simplify it, and keep it simple. How I take it and how I would always, like I suggest to my husband, and of course my son has, you know, plays hockey like yours does. I take my Immunocal after my training. So I'm a person who trains in the morning, very early in the morning before I start my workday, get my stress out, get into that so that my training is done, and then I can focus on being over here in compliance at Immunotech. So I take it right after my training. So we all heard about that famous window after your training. I believe that window exists to allow me to recover and start that recovery process immediately. So whether if you've just gotten, off of the couch and just started training for a 5K, John, like your point, I would suggest that whether you take your Immunocal first thing in the morning or you do take it at night before bed, like a lot of people do, be sure to get your Immunocal in also, or your Platinum in right after your training is done, because that way you kickstart that recovery immediately in your body, and you will have a better day for it and a better tomorrow, more importantly.
Great, great.
So 2 points. Dr. Droge explained to me the best time to take Immunocal is in that window after exercise. The next best time is on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. And second thing, as an athlete, it doesn't matter if you're a pro, an amateur. The idea is you want to control the controllable variables. Some of these variables you can see, some you can't see, and Immunocal offers you a way to control a whole series of variables that would otherwise be unreachable. So two things of advice.
Great, great. So let me give the proper introduction to our next speaker. I reference him as if you all know him, and you all will know him. Most of you know of him that are new. But he is, along with John Molson, these two guys, John Molson and Dr. Gutman, and I'm talking to him, in the first person. I mean, they become such a big part of my life, both professionally and personally, and dear friends of mine and Keith's and so many of yours. But, we have a lot of new people on the call today, and Dr. Gutman is the gentleman that, amongst other things, if I could only sum up Jimmy Gutman in one phrase, it would be that he is the world's leading authority on glutathione. And I could say a lot of other great things about him, and I would if time allowed. But if I just told all of you new people that he is the world's leading authority on this one subject, he's written more about it than anybody on the face of the planet. He's written a number of books on it and considered the world's authority, not just by us at Immunotech, by the way. Obviously, he has a major role in our company, but throughout the scientific world. So at this point, I'm going to turn the call over to my good friend, Dr. Jimmy Gutman. And Dr. Gutman, if you keep in mind, we have a lot of new people on the call. And, glutathione perhaps is a new terminology for them, new word for them. So I'll just throw it to you and let you educate us, my friend. Welcome to the call.
Thank you very, very much, John. I just want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed this call, and isn't it just amazing the amount of sophistication that our people have? You talk about me as a world expert in glutathione. Thank you very much, but I'm humbled by having spent time with Dr. Bunos. I'm humbled by having spent time with Dr. Kongshaven and Dr. Droga, and you just spending time with John Molson and listening to Dr. Nathan Lewis. I mean, these, I'll use a British term, Nathan, brilliant, just brilliant. So yes, I appreciate that there are a lot of people who are new on this call. I was just looking at some of the notes and comments in the chat. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just do just a couple of minutes as a primer. I'm going to try and see, Keith, if you can allow me to share my screen, maybe it'll be more efficient. I'll just go through some very, very basic things, because the newer people, they do need, as John mentioned, some terminology.
You're good
okay,
to go.
Good. So let me get that going. Are you seeing?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we'll go back to what is Immunocal? I mean, there's a lot of people new on the call that are just wondering what it is that we're looking at here. Now, Immunocal, it's a protein. You probably picked up on that, but it's not just a protein. There are so many tools that we use to measure the quality of a protein. For example, the term called biological value, which is a reflection of how much of that protein is essential amino acids or non-essential amino acids. Just let me keep it simple. There is no more important edible protein with a higher score on so many different measurements than Immunocal. It's just the best protein you can put in your mouth. And the reason that makes it even more exciting is that this is a protein that has been proven over 40 years to raise this thing called glutathione. And you've been hearing that word glutathione for the most part of the afternoon. Well, what does glutathione do? Well, it's a little molecule already inside of your body, and Immunocal makes this more of this stuff in your body. And it has a number of rules, the four most important of which could be remembered with the word IDEA. I stands for the immune system. This is literally food for your immune system. D stands for detoxification. There's likely no more important detoxification enzyme in your body than glutathione. E stands for energy, and you've been hearing a lot about that today. And finally, antioxidant. Glutathione is known as the master antioxidant. Now that's sounds like a marketing term, but a lot of scientists call glutathione the master antioxidant because none of the other antioxidants we know of, and we know of probably over 2,000 different antioxidants, they cannot work properly without the presence of glutathione. Okay, so now you know what Immunocal is and what glutathione is. How's this going to help the athlete? Again, I'll just summarize it. It's going to help the immune function, recovery. It's going to help your muscles and your muscle mass. And ultimately, what we want to see is an improvement in performance. When we look at immunity and the immune system, Dr. Lewis had showed us a very interesting graph that also showed this climbing up the hill and then crashing down off the hill. You want to find yourself at the top of the hill. With no exercise, you don't have the best immune system. As you build up your exercise, your immune system also it responds to this and behaves better. And people who are doing regular exercise have a stronger resistance against viral diseases and other infectious disease. But as Dr. Lewis showed, that if you overtrain, you can see a crash in your immune system. So that's a kind of a simple way to look at it. And what we're trying to do is get you right up on top over there. And we're looking at recovery in athletes. We're looking at not just the acute injury that you're going to see, a guy spilled out on the field, but even things that you aren't going to see on your television, the soreness that the athletes are experiencing the day after, and the chronic stressors and all the other things that you would imagine are going to cut into the performance of an athlete. Maintenance of lean mass is a very, very interesting one. Everybody is trying to increase their musculature, not just for aesthetic purposes, but for functional purposes. But again, training a lot, overtraining, and certainly not addressing your nutritional needs can lead to a loss of muscle mass. This is very interesting. This is a picture of an NHL hockey player at the end of the season. Of course, we've had a shortened season. We finally got hockey back now. We probably have the healthiest hockey players we've ever seen in the playoffs, but many of them go into the playoffs looking like this. And for the Europeans and the people south of the border, or south of the American border, looking at soccer players, you can lose 20 pounds or 10 kilos over a season. And when we look at the glutathione and the major amino acid that raises glutathione, cysteine, there are a lot of studies that just describe how raising glutathione and raising cysteine is going to increase the actual size of an individual muscle cell. We also, this is our famous study from 1999. It was just taken a bunch of university athletes, splitting them into a group, putting one half on Immunocal and one half on a placebo, putting through the same exercise program for an entire summer and bringing them back at the end of the summer. We were able to demonstrate an increased muscle strength of about 13%. Now, what does that number mean? If you speak to John and Nathan and Julie, they'll tell you that in high-level sports, for example, the Olympics, the difference between the gold medal and the poor slob pulling up 6th place is often 1% or less than 1%. So increasing strength and endurance of 10 to 15% is a remarkable number. This caused a lot of people to pay attention. It caused Nathan Lewis to pick up the phone and call Immunotech to find out more. And with all of this under our belt and all of the research we've done under our belt, Health Canada, which is a very conservative federal group, actually allowed us to make claims about performance. Essentially, if you take Immunocal, your muscle performance is going to be better. So just to summarize, what are the benefits of taking Immunocal for the athlete? It's going to improve the immune system, going to decrease recovery time, help you heal up, not only maintain your muscle mass, but increase your muscle mass, optimize your training and your strengthening your endurance, and ultimately, at the end of the day, enhance your performance. So hopefully that was a catch-up for everybody. And what fun, what great fun we're having with everybody. So thank you for joining us, and I'm going to hand it back to you, John and Keith.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Gutman. Appreciate that. I mean, John, today has been a phenomenal day, and it's just so great to have Dr. Gutman cap it off for us.
Well, you know, Keith, it's amazing because I've even got my sister sitting here asking me more about glutathione, Dr. Gutman. It took her 24 years to start using the product. This sister, my sister in New Jersey, a little smarter. She's been using it longer, but some better late than never. But she's asking me. But that was great. But you know, Dr. Gutman, if you could summarize Reader's Digest version, most people on here are laymen. What is glutathione, and why is it so vitally important for our longevity and health?
Well, we all are built a certain way, and we rely on certain substances in our body. Glutathione is a rather simple molecule that is in every single one of our cells. And the major role that it serves, and we've all heard about oxidants and antioxidants, it is the antioxidant, the major antioxidant that your body makes itself. So whenever we're burning up energy, whenever we're breathing air, whenever we're under stress, whenever we're exposed to toxins in the environment, there has to be a mechanism by which the body deals with this. And I think, you know, when we look at detoxification, for example, I tell people that next to water, there probably isn't a more important detoxification substance than glutathione. So glutathione keeps the energy levels up in your cell by reducing the stresses and strain to the little batteries that live in our cell called the mitochondria. Glutathione keeps your cell clean. Glutathione feeds the immune system. It's a multifunctional molecule that even today not everybody has heard about, but in the medical literature, there's over 150,000 published articles on this. So even for the people that haven't heard about glutathione yet, it's going to be part of your everyday language in the next few years. It's that important. We literally cannot live for 10 minutes without this molecule.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gutman. As always, great job. And Keith, it's been an amazing day, but we're not done yet. We've still got one other speaker. I know some of you may be looking for Mauricio. Unfortunately, he's in a place where his cell phone is not cooperating. So I don't know whether he's camping or fishing or somewhere, but if I know Mauricio, he's probably out opening a new country. So he's always working for us, as you know. But unfortunately, he's got no phone access, so he can't join us as he wanted to, but he sends his regards, obviously, as always. However, we do have, okay, another great speaker, works with the company, works with us every single day, and he's got some announcements for us as well. So you're going to want to stick around for a few minutes and hear from our good friend, JC Martinez. JC, are you with us? What?
Yeah, he's unmuted. He's there.
Okay, unmute him.
He's just hiding out. That's all. We're going to put him to work.
I know he's in Houston, so and it's 100 degrees in Dallas, so I doubt he's out fishing today. JC?
What happened to him here?
Okay, hold on a second. Technical difficulties. If you get to the end of one of these calls, this is our first technical difficulty, guys. Believe me, on my end, the keys, you're like, praise God.
All right, JC.
Yep.
Well, you know what? He wanted me to play a video here, John. So while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and load that up here and do that.
We have only one life to live. Just one. So, live better. Live your best life. And make a difference. We can show you how. Because living better is in our DNA. Because we are inspired to enhance lives, including yours, with everything we have to offer. Vitality, a vibrant community, and prosperity that matters. Because we know our purpose, and we live by it. We are all about happiness, integrity, science, celebration, and family. So let us celebrate together, being the best, living our best, by creating the lives we have always envisioned. Because together, we can discover the joy of finding our own potential. Because we are Immunotech. We are all Immunotech.
Can you hear me now, guys?
Yes, we can, JC. Go ahead.
There you are.
I am here since the very beginning, Mr. Hooper.
I know, but you were hiding out. We couldn't see you or hear you. So see, I was able to play your video. I mean, that's an amazing way. Things are coming together. You know, JC, people talk about right place, right time. You know, I think I was looking at I think we've had over 3,000 new people join already so far this month of August. I mean, isn't that an amazing time?
Amazing. Believe me, I am so happy. Mauricio is so happy, and he's so sad that he cannot join us because, you know, his cell phone is not working. And as you can see, my computer was not helping us at the very beginning. But I'm here, and, you know, I am just convinced that after all we have heard, there is no doubt that we have the best product. Immunocal is unique, just like each one of us. And I want to thank you for the time you take to be at this event. It's really amazing. And I want to talk to you about July. The month of July established a new record in sales and in the number of recruitments of consultants and customers. In July, imagine this, we celebrate 71 new diamonds, 9 new executive diamonds, 4 new platinums, and 4 new senior platinums. Believe me, it was amazing at the end of the month, you know, how the people were like celebrating and posting all these Facebook pictures, you know, regarding a new rank. We also celebrate almost 1,400 earners for the incentive trip. That means that around 1,800 people are going to be in New York and in Ishkaret, depending on the country they are signed up. So we are really, really happy, really, really happy. You know, every day we are happy, but at the end of July, we were really happy because improving people's lifestyles is an important part of our business, and we are doing it. Your teams are growing, and we have more people getting to know our project. Today is the ideal time for people to get to know Immunotech. Today, it's a time to get along by sharing our product and our business opportunity. I want to invite you to continue attending these spectaculars, and at the same time, I want to continue insisting that the business opportunity we have is a great opportunity for everyone. That is why I ask you to continue inviting more people to meet and discover the benefits they can obtain when taking our products. Also invite them to be part of your team. All of us who work in Immunotech want to collaborate and be part of the success of each one of you. Thank you. Thank you very much for being part of the Immunotech family. Thank you, John Soleder. Thank you, Keith Hooper, for putting place in these spectaculars. And thank you, of course, to Dr. Molson and to Dr. Lewis for being this call, and of course, our amazing Dr. Gutman. So thank you everyone for being here, and thank you for doing July a spectacular month. And I'm thinking that August is going to be the same because we have the product and we have the opportunity to do a great, great business. So thank you guys for inviting me.
Thank you, JC. And you know, I'm just thinking about, you know, those were the top end promotions of, you know, four senior platinums. How many new platinums?
4 senior platinums and 4 new platinums.
4 new platinums. And how many executive diamonds?
9 executive diamonds.
9 executive diamonds. Wow. So when you think about that, okay, we're talking about roughly 20,000 new people around 10 countries.
20,000 new people in the company in July.
And think about that. I mean, listen, as an upline, as a leader, as somebody who's has obviously a large vested interest in Immunotech, you know, it thrills me to hear, you know, new senior platinums, new platinums, obviously, but those are, you know, 8 or 10 people. But when I think about 20,000 new men and women have made a decision to build a financial fortress around themselves and their loved ones, and to use Immunotech and Immunocal as the vehicle to do so, it's amazing. It just, I know Keith and I have been here a long time. You know, we've spent the last 2+ decades doing this. I know some of you on the call have been here a long time. And it's testament to Dr. Bunos, Dr. Kongshaven, obviously, and the product that they built, to John Molson and Dr. Gutman for the guidance that they've given with that product and with that discovery over these many, many years. And also, of course, to our original founders, you know, Dieter and Chuck and John. And of course, our new owner and leader, Mauricio Domenzane, and the great team that he's building, that people have that level of confidence that they're looking at Immunotech and saying, wow, that's a company that I want to be part of. And, you know, the great part, JC, is we know we're just starting. I know 10 countries. I mean, we look at some of the companies in our industry that are in 50 countries and 60 countries and 80 countries, and, you know, what that's going to mean. So that's great. Keith, I know you've got a couple of announcements, and come back to me because I got one other quick announcement.
Yeah, we just want to share with everybody. Look, if you know, we got a lot of questions about how do you access the video from today? How are you going to be able to know about what we're doing? Get over to xyztools.com, www.xyztools.com. You register there. That's how we communicate with you out of that system. There's some information right there on the homepage, you know, there regarding some things that John and I have done together. Moving up 2020 is there, as other things, and this video link from what we did today from Dr. Lewis. I mean, wow, amazing from John Molson, from Dr. Gutman, and even the director of compliance. Can you imagine? There she has the only person in Immunotech that has her own Air Force of nuclear devices. But what an amazing day it's been, John. But once again, if your team doesn't know about it, what good is it? Okay, once again, it's not the same. The recording will be great, but it's not the same as being live. So once again, get over to www.xyztools.com. There's a place to register for emails that come out of that, and I'm going to open up on our favorite girl Julie there for just a minute and ask Maurizio to come back our JC to come back here as well. It's important to be here, right, Julie?
It is critical to be here. Absolutely mission critical to be here and to make time for these. 100%.
And the best way to know about it is go to XYZ Tools and get registered.
XYZtools.com. 100% best way to know about it. And I will also give a little plug to John's Facebook page. He posts a lot of what's going on. And of course, if you're part of Immunotech, the Immunotech English Facebook page also posts all of these Zoomtacular. Morgan does a great job of making sure that everybody's aware. So yeah, just get online, find all these different places, and you don't want to miss the next one because it's going to be even better.
Yeah, and to that point, John, let's go to JC. JC, final thought there, and I want to get back to Mr. Molson for a minute.
Just want to thank you another time, because it's really important, as Julie says, to be here because we learn a lot and we can share, this amazing project with everyone. We invite them and they are going to fall in love with Immunotech and with you guys. So thank you very much. Absolutely.
Well, John, do we want to share about September the 12th?
Well, yeah, I want to see if John is, I think John is off, John Molson, if we can pick up on there. John, you still with us? I don't see him on there, Keith.
Okay, he may have dropped off.
I think so. I know you have
another Zoomtacular on September the 12th. It's going to be different than this one, but it's just as powerful. And you're going to want to be here, folks. And if you don't know about it, you can't bite people. So once again, Facebook page, all the stuff that we have, John, for everybody.
Well, and just a couple of points on there. You're right. XYZ Tools, we're using as kind of a sub-site in addition to the company site to promote things. Promote. My first mentors in this business, they taught me the art of promotion. Okay, so when Julie says my Facebook page is always filled with stuff, it's always filled with stuff. I went to the gym yesterday afternoon. Some of you probably saw me put 450 pounds on a bar and press it. What do you think of that, Julie, huh?
I am always impressed. I'm always impressed. As John knows, my little guns don't lift very much.
Well, Julie and I are always comparing arms, but I know I can out bench press her, but I know in a race.
I'll run you any day, my friend.
But I use everything to promote. I use when I go to the gym to promote these Zoomtaculars. I use everything that I can possibly use, and that's what you want to do, okay? And obviously, we got a big team around the world. You want to have a big team around the world. How do you get a big team around the world? Promote. Learn the art of promotion. You don't have to become a suede shoed salesman like Keith Hooper. You don't have to be good looking like JC. You just could be an ugly guy like me, and you can go out there and learn how to promote, and you can build a big business, okay? Now, XYZ Tools also has access to not only our book, but some of the other classics of self-development through our friends at Tremendous Leadership. So if you've never read the book that Keith and I wrote called Moving Up, you need to read it. It's available in Spanish as well as English, by the way, okay? You need to read that. Dr. Gutman's book, if you have not read Dr. Gutman's book, you need to get that as well. These are things in your arsenal to keep educating you. And that's what these Zoomtaculars really are. It's kind of like going back to school, right? I mean, I know a lot of kids are going back to school this week, including mine, kind of going back to school. They're getting on their computer for school. But anyway, point being, this is education, okay? Now, we've had an amazing day with Dr. Lewis. He did an incredible job. To me, it's so exciting because I love sports, obviously, and not only doing them, but watching them and following them and everything else. I know a lot of you do as well. Last month, of course, Dr. Linsman, amazing presentation on TBIs, right? Traumatic brain injuries. Dr. Lewis mentioned, the Will Smith movie Concussion. If you've never seen it, and you don't really know the full impact of a concussion on a person's life, you want to watch that movie at some point, okay? But more than that, you also want to be aware of the research Dr. Lindsman and his team have brought to Immunotech. And then, of course, prior to that, we had Dr. Kongshaven, who is the co-developer of the product. So, can't say enough about what she brought to the table as well. All of these videos are available for you, okay, on XYZ Tools and the YouTube channel and everything else. So we're trying to make all of these things available for your education, but also your distributor's education, okay? The more you know, the more weaponized you become when you're talking to someone. For example, I started this call today talking about when we started this 2.5 decades ago, we saw this product. My first introduction to it was my mom was sick. She got on this product as a result of a conversation with a medical doctor, okay? That's how I was introduced to Immunocal. So my first thoughts of Immunocal was this is for sick people, and it's for the immune system, it's for immune compromised. Here we are today with Dr. Lewis talking about the most elite athletes on the planet that are using and benefiting by Immunocal. Think of that spectrum. On the one hand, very sick people. On the other hand, very elite people. Okay, take those two people out of the equation, and the other 98.5% of people on the planet are neither world-class athletes or totally immune compromised. They want to make that correlation that this product is for everyone. And once again, the education that we're hopefully providing with bringing these great researchers to the table is to share with you, hey, there's people with these tremendous educations in specific topics of what the human body needs and the benefits of obviously glutathione, but more than that, the delivery system via Immunocal, right? And that's why you want to get all of this stuff. You want to study all this stuff. You want to listen to all of this stuff, okay? And the more that you know, the more powerful you're going to become. You know, I could speak about my friend, Dr. Ricardo Pelayo, for a second. Okay, Dr. Pelayo, as most of you know, is an amazing distributor. He's also a man, once again, from the medical field, was his original training. I can assure you, if you sat down with Dr. Pelayo, and he speaks very limited English, I can tell you in a heartbeat, everything that we just mentioned here are things that he applies to his business, okay? I could tell you, I could go through, Rosa Pelayo and tell you the same thing with her. I could tell you we've got a new group of people that have recently joined us from Puerto Rico, and welcome to them. Bienvenidos, Puerto Rico. Okay, of professional network marketers. And guess what they're doing? They're studying all of this information and applying it to their business as they grow it. Follow? So what do you want to do? The same thing. You want to take those same things and say, hey, they exist for a reason. Use them. Take full advantage of them, okay, is what we want to do. So anyway, lots said. Been a great day. Thank you all for coming. Have a great balance of your Saturday. Put on your calendar September 12th, which is 4 weeks from today, I guess, Keith, or 5? What are we up to here?
What are we? We got 3.
5 weeks?
I guess it's 5 weeks from today.
5 weeks from today, we will be back together. We'll start getting announcements out about that. John is not with us, but I can tease.
You know what? Julie's there with smiles on her face. I think she knows a little bit about that doctor that's going to be joining.
Well, I was going to say, Dr. Gutman is still there too. So either one of them, if they want to share a little bit about that researcher, just as a little teaser. Julie, are you aware of who we're talking about?
Who's coming on the 12th?
Oh, yeah. Listen to you. Okay. All right.
Okay. Is Dr. Gutman still with us?
The longevity study in
you don't. Okay. So I'm just going to say it as honest as I always am. Ladies and gentlemen, we are online. Most of you are in your home. The people you know are in their homes right now. This researcher, if we were to try and have him attend an event, so many people would be upset because they would not be able to be in that one location at that very specific time and day. And yet he is going to be right here online, Zoomtacular. You will not want to miss. Invite everybody you know, because it is going to be fabulous. And it is something that you would not be able to hear anywhere else, because it just would not be possible to get so many people into a room to hear him speak. Trust me, invite everybody you know. It's longevity. We all want to be young and, oh, I can't wait. I hope you invite me back, Keith.
All right. And so September the 12th would be a good time to mark the calendar, not to go off and plan on doing anything else, right?
No, be right here. Well, on the new link, but invite everybody you know.
They got to get the XYZ tool so they get that.
Yeah.
Dr. Gutman?
Can't wait.
All right. Well, just tease us a little bit.
All I got to do is keep a straight face. I think that'll be enough.
Okay, you know what? Because I don't want to get in trouble with compliance, Keith. Okay, however, let me say this, and Dr. Gutman, he probably can't comment on it, but he and I have had this discussion. John and I have had this discussion. Keith, you and I have had this discussion. Foster, Wally, we've all had this discussion. What's amazing to me, I was sitting in the back of a room in Toronto about 5 years ago, and we had Dr. Barry White, who's now 82 years old, Wally Kralik, who's now 78 years old, Betty Lyons, who she's a lady, so I won't say her age, but she's getting there with Wally. Okay, and I forget the two other people. Oh, Tom Oldershaw. Tom is there. Tom, raise your hand. Tom is 78. He doesn't mind me sharing his age. Not only is he 78, he's still riding his bicycle all over Barry, raising funds for the homeless, and God bless him for doing that. Okay, and I forget who the fifth person was, to be honest with you, and I'll think cognito after the call, and I'll remember. But I remember sitting there thinking, I've known these people. Some of these people came with me from a prior company. I've known some of these people since 1989. Okay, they're not getting any older, at least on the outside. Okay, and that's not a claim, by the way, for compliance, Julie. But looking at them from the outside, when I knew them 25 years ago, they pretty much, a few more gray hairs, maybe, one or two more wrinkles, but I'm saying they are not aging like the general population. Okay, now I'm 59 years old. Okay, and I don't want to age at all, and I know I am slowly but surely. But at the end of the day, if I could just slow that down a little tiny bit, like those people, when I sat in the back of the room looking at them, I'm saying they all have one thing in common. They take a product called Immunocal. Okay? They have one thing in common. So to Julie's point, okay, and Dr. Gutman's point, and they're both being little what's the word?
Coy.
They're Cheshire cats. They're Cheshire cats tonight.
Here's what I know with what Dr. Lewis shared today, with what Dr. Linsman shared last month, what Dr. Kongshaman shared prior to that, what Dr. Gutman shares on a daily basis with the field. Okay, the one thing I know is this: we all want to live longer, but we also want a better quality of life in doing so. Right? We don't want to be attached to machines the last part of our life or whatever. I want to go to sleep like my grandmother did and just go to sleep and not get up one morning. Okay, that's the way to go. You don't have a choice in these things most of the time. But at the end of the day, I want to be lifting weights like my friend Bob Bassman when I'm 85 years old. I want to be still hobbling along the powerlifting meets and going, okay, put some weight on the bar and let me see if I can do it or not. Okay, that's what I want to do. And I know darn well that one of the things that will help me to do that is every single day ripping that package open and drinking it, plain and simple. So anyway, now I know that, and you know that. What we need to do is between now and 5 weeks from now, let as many other human beings know that as possible so they show up. Because to Julie's point, if that gentleman were to speak anywhere in the world, I guarantee you the line would be out to the street to hear what he has to say. And he happens once again to be a big, big fan and advocate of Immunocal. So with that said, I said more than I'm supposed to.
Yep, you sure did. You got us out of the weeds, but Dr. Lewis, because once again, you look at Dr. Lewis and the healthy adult. We've talked with people that are sick, all the research in the very beginning. We've got the people in the middle because, even though compliance is here, Dr. Droge looked at Sandra all those years ago in Florida and looked at her and said, I believe Immunocal add 30 years to your life expectancy. So that's why they want to come here on September the 12th. Find out what that's all about. Find out all the things that we have going. So
we want to create a lot of healthy senior citizens cashing checks and promoting Immunocal the rest of their lives. That's one of my personal goals. As many senior citizens as possible, and people who become senior citizens during their Immunotech career, that we all will grow old together. And, you know, that's something, you know, once again, that we want to do. But anyway, enough said on that. September 12th, you got the date. We got 5 weeks. Let's promote. And once again, have a great balance of your weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.